My name is Desmond Otoma from the African Nazarene University Quality Assurance Office, and this recording is a quick guide to those who have been appointed to participate in the internal quality assurance system audit as auditors. Remember that the internal audit is a peer review process, and the findings from the audit are for the sole purpose of ensuring that we keep improving towards our goal for attaining excellence in academics. And the output of this is to get better auditors of us, remembering that a good auditee is also a good auditor and vice versa. So thank you very much and welcome, and enjoy viewing or listening, whichever applies. The audit is split into 5 stages, namely the planning meeting, which is for auditors only. Then there's an opening meeting, which is for auditors and auditees, including their teams if they're available. Then the third phase is the audit proper, which will basically be for the auditors and the auditees only. And the fourth phase is the auditors meeting, which will be a meeting of auditors only. And the fifth phase is a closing meeting, which is for the auditors and auditees, including the auditees team, if they're available. The planning meeting. The following will be expected of the audit team during the planning meeting. We'll expect a recording of the auditors in attendance. Number 2, a confirmation that all the checklists are available and in sufficient copies. A sample of the checklist is there. It has been extracted from the procedure that is going to be audited. So the checklist is just a match of the procedure that we're going to be auditing. Then there will also be confirmation that the audit findings forms have been prepared, and this is a sample of the audit findings form. What we have done is that we have just added an extra column on the checklist so that against every item to be checked, there will be findings that will be recorded. So that is the audit findings form. Then confirmation that there is a registration forms, because we shall be expecting those in attendance of the opening meetings, the auditors meeting and the closing meetings to register their presence. And this is a sample of the registration forms for every meeting. People will enter their names, the unit they represent, the position in those units, and they will sign against their names. Further to that, we'll expect confirmation of the corrective action request forms. The auditors will need to confirm that they have the corrective action request forms, which looks like this. Is a form that will be explaining how it's utilized in a short while. So we need to confirm that those forms are available during the planning meeting. Then, for ease of production of reports subsequent to the audit, documentation will be done electronically, and the auditors should confirm availability of fully charged cameras and computers. Feel free to use your smartphones and laptops for recording purposes. And then there is need for the team of auditors to agree on the role that will be played by each of the auditors. One of them should actually be the lead of the team, and the other one will be playing a supporting role. And finally, we'll need to have an agreement on the duration of the various phases, how long the opening meeting should take, how long the audit should take, and how long the auditors meeting should take, including even the closing meeting. So that is the first phase where the auditors will be meeting during the planning meeting. The opening meeting, we've indicated will be a meeting between the auditor, the auditee and preferably also the auditee team to attend. And the following agenda should be covered during this meeting. 1, an introduction of the participants, including an outline of their roles and registration. 2, we need a confirmation of the audit objectives, scope, and the criteria. Remember, this was outlined in the notification, but we can still display the notification that was sent to all, which indicated the audit objective, the criteria for auditing, the scope for the auditing, and including even who the auditors would be. So there will need to be a confirmation of those during the opening meeting. We would want also a confirmation of the audit timetable and other relevant arrangements with the auditee, such as the dates and time of the closing meeting. Indicate to the auditees and their team when we are likely to be holding the closing meeting. And then we will also expect a confirmation of the formal communication channels between the team and the auditee. Remember, earlier on, one of the auditors had been appointed as the team leader, so he'll be the guy who will be guiding much of the discussions. Then methods and procedures to be used to conduct the audit. There's going to be quite a bit of sampling. If we want to confirm maybe anything about whether faculty have entered the records into the CAMS system, we will not check all the faculty. We'll do a random sample of any of the faculty that does teaching. Then confirmation that during the audit, the auditee will be kept informed of audit progress. We'll also confirm with the members attending the meeting that the resources and facilities needed for the audit team are available. We will need a meeting room. There will be need for photocopy facilities and direction to the printers. Then during the meeting also we require confirmation of the language to be used during the audit. This might appear obvious, but it's important to confirm that the audit will be carried out in English. And then the method of reporting and grading of non-conformities. These will either be major or minor. Major non-conformities being items that could demonstrate that the quality system basically doesn't work. For instance, we'll be showing examples of major and minor non-conformities as we proceed during the audit itself. Then matters relating to confidentiality will be emphasized. Also during the meeting, we shall give the conditions under which the audit can be terminated. And some of these conditions would include if the auditees are uncooperative, if from the initial phase it's established that a system doesn't seem to exist, and then if the auditee is not available, the audit will be stopped. And remember, the auditee is the process owner, basically the head of department in this case. Then we shall also indicate to the members present that there is an appeal system of on conducting or conclusion of outcomes of the audit. The audit has a team leader, and there's a lead auditor for the entire exercise, and the lead auditor reports to the Office of the Director of Quality Assurance for purposes of the audit. And then any other business could be entertained during the meeting. So that is the second phase, which covers the opening meeting. Then the audit proper. During the audit, where the auditors will be sitting with the auditee, the auditor will systematically walk the auditee through the audit checklist. The audit is evidence-based, and the auditor will only be interested in the evidence for conformity with a particular clause or lack of the evidence. The auditor is encouraged not to open up discussions regarding evidence, as this will either be present or not. Findings will be recorded and the evidence for positive findings captured. And maybe at this stage we could walk into the audit findings form just to give an indication of how that would happen. For instance, if this is the checklist and it says as at number 3 there, evidence of awareness of documented quality management system. Part of what could be recorded would be there was evidence of the documented quality management system. And what is the evidence? The evidence would be that the procedure that is being audited or the quality procedure manual is readily available within the department, and we can see a copy of it either in terms of soft or a hard copy available. And remember, this should be the authorized version of the procedure. If you go to 1.3 there, if you're looking for evidence that the concerned lecturer collected the class attendance forms for the class from the department before the beginning of the class, maybe there was no evidence of that, which would be a major nonconformity in this case if there is no evidence that faculty collected the class attendance forms from the head of department. But if the evidence is there, we expect that perhaps there is a register against which these folks sign as they collect the forms. So that will be recorded during the audit. So, of course, evidence will be predominantly in the form of records available within close proximity of the auditee at the time of the audit. And then, having walked the auditee through each item of the checklist and recorded findings against each of the in the audit finding forms, the auditor will print out the audit findings forms and ensure that the auditee has signed the form. So notice that at the bottom of the audit finding forms, there is provision for the name and signature of the auditee, and that should be ensured at the end of this particular phase. Then after this, we go into the phase of the auditors meeting, and this is a meeting that will take place away from the auditee. We expect the auditors to retreat and hold their meeting, and this meeting will involve categorization of the findings largely. So these will be categorized as general observations, which the auditors made during the audit. For instance, things to do with the ease of retrieval of documents and general ambience within the department. Could be some general observations. The positive findings will also be recorded, as we indicated earlier. If maybe against an item on the checklist, the evidence was available, that is a positive finding. And then we shall have the major nonconformities. And a major nonconformity could be an item, as we indicated earlier, that would cause a collapse of the process or procedure. For instance, if there is no evidence that the information from the attendance forms was transferred into the enterprise system, that is a major nonconformity. But in the event, perhaps the information was transferred, but instead of the 48 hours within which it was transferred, we find that it was transferred after 64 hours. That is a nonconformity, but it's on the minor side. Then the auditors will draw the recommendations and also prepare the corrective action request forms. We had shown how the corrective action request form looks like. This is how it looks like. After we have decided on the nonconformities, it's only the nonconformities that are transferred into the corrective action request forms. So you'll enter the details of the audit there, the nonconformity itself and the evidence for it in that space, and then categorize this whether it is major or minor, The auditee will be signing later, but then as the auditor, please indicate the root cause for that non-conformity, and then the correction that is expected. So these are things that will be prepared by the auditors during the auditors meeting, and every non-conformity will be recorded on its own corrective action request form. Notice the form has spaces that we shall be discussing about in a short while, about the dates of agreement of how those non-conformities will be addressed. So this preparation should be happening during the auditors meeting. Thereafter, we will walk as auditors into the closing meeting together with the auditee and their team, and the following should be covered as the agenda of the closing meeting. Taking attendance of those present. It will be important to thank the auditees. It's assumed that they'll have cooperated by this stage. Then quickly revisit the audit objectives and the scope of the audit, and then mention the principle of sampling that was followed. Generally, there would have been a bit of random sampling here and there. Then summarize the audit findings, a general feeling of what the audit findings are, but then give the non-conformity in a lot of details, explaining what they are, what the evidence would have been if it were there, and then what corrective action is expected to be carried out. And then present an overall summary and conclusion from the audit. Allow for some discussion to take place, after which we will now request for corrective action dates as required in the corrective action request forms. And once the dates have been agreed, we agree on the follow-up dates together with the auditees, and of course, as per instructions, this should not be more than 14 days from the date of the audit. All the corrections should have been carried out, unless they are of major resource requirements. Then, at this stage, get the auditee to complete and sign the corrective action request form in the spaces provided, then close the meeting with prayers. So that is the last phase of the audit. Immediately after the audit, we'll expect, and after the closing meeting, we'll expect the auditors to meet the lead auditor of the exercise and hand over the following documents. They'll hand over the attendance records for all the meetings, all the checklists that have been used and unused, all the audit finding forms, complete with findings and the auditee's signatures. We'd also expect all the corrective action request forms completed with the auditor and auditee's signatures to be handed over. The lead auditor will then prepare the audit report and forward this to the Director of Quality Assurance, with copies filed to the Office of the DVC within 48 hours. And it will be now upon the Director of Quality Assurance to discuss the audit reports at subsequent Senate and Management Board meetings. That marks the end of the tutorial. I hope it has been helpful to the extent that it is going to make the audit process easier for you than it would have been had you not encountered the recording. We still open to any guidance or questions that you may have regarding the process, either through our telephone extension or through email. And we're looking forward to a great audit process come next week. Thank you.